Hi. Apparently, we started already so fast. Okay. Hi, how are you? I'm
Hi,
Franck
I'm good.
Marchis. Hi, Martin.
Hello.
Hello. So that was unexpected. So, anyway, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are on this planet, and welcome to a very special SETI Live. We're gonna try to skip it to under 30 minutes. Martin promised that, so we're gonna try that, Martin. So, Martin is um, Professor Martin Dominik from the University of St Andrews in Scotland. He's a physicist and astronomer, and we are going to talk about a white paper that was published quite recently on what shall we do when we find that we are not alone, we find life elsewhere. Hi, Martin, how are you?
Hello, I'm great.
You
Good to be
good?
here.
Good having you. So before we go into this paper, this paper is great because it talks about a future discovery. But let's talk about the past. What is, if I give you the power of travel back in time and to witness a moment in history where we do a major discovery, what will be the moment you choose and what discovery?
Yeah, I think something that is particular mind-boggling is the fact that the stuff we're made of, with the exception of hydrogen atoms, actually comes from nuclear fusion within the interior of stars, or actually comes from stars exploding as supernovae. And that actually provides a mind-boggling connection between life, ourselves, and the universe. Moreover, this discovery, that wasn't an event, it's a process.
Uh-huh.
And that's also interesting.
Okay. Well, let me say hi to people watching us from New Jersey, from Salve. So we are going to talk about a white paper called the SETI Post-Detection Future, Direction for Technosignature Research and Readiness. It's a white paper, it's intense, but it's a very good read. All right, so most people, when I mentioned the SETI Live, told me, wow, scientists are thinking about this. Do you truly believe that we are on the verge of finding life elsewhere and we should be ready for that? Why do you think we are going to find life soon in our probably lifetime, life elsewhere?
So we simply don't know when it's going to happen or whether it's going to happen at all. However, if we don't care, we always think, yeah, it won't happen within the next 10 years, within the next 20 years, we're never going to do anything. Moreover, what we're seeing at the moment is that over the recent years already, there have been many unsubstantiated claims about life beyond Earth. So, as much as we need strategies to deal with a detection of life, we also need strategies how to deal with claims of the detection of extraterrestrial life that turn out not to be true.
Yeah. So the reason for which we have so many claims as well is because technologies that have changed significantly. Can you most people believe that we're still searching for life by pointing an antenna like we see in the movie Contact. But in fact, now is way more complex than that. Can you give us some example of technological advancement or things that you think will accelerate the discovery of life elsewhere in our universe?
So, I think recent developments not only come from new technology like new instruments that come out, but also on our ability to analyze data. Our computing power has increased, and we're getting into completely new methods of data analysis in terms of artificial intelligence. So we have a much larger ability to actually detect something based on our data, and the amount of data is just increasing at an enormous and dramatic rate. This still answers
So
the question
yeah,
whether there's something out there or not. So we only know that our chances increase if there's something out there.
Yeah, we used to be searching for a needle, basically a tiny sign, but now we are searching for a tiny sign in a wide variety of different instruments, radio telescope, which are basically plugged into AI algorithm to make it more efficient. Some papers show, for instance, that AI has been capable of detecting potential techno signatures that was missed by people. So we have that part, and then we also have the way we do the search. You talk about these innovative other minds paradigms into the paper. Can you elaborate about this?
Yeah, I mean, we have to think about, what does it mean to be intelligent? Um, what does life actually mean? We're facing the fundamental problem that we can't detect life unless we're clear what life actually means. What is it that we're actually looking for? So this is where also kind of technosignatures and biosignatures might get blurred. Because if we look at radio signals from intelligent civilizations, on one hand, we can look at the technology and take the technology as an indicator for some intelligent civilization. But we can also look whether there's any message content. In that sense, um, a hint of language might be actually a very good signature for the existence of any biology, which, by the way, is completely agnostic to whether there's any chemical system behind it or not, whether it comes from humans or it comes from a robot. But
Yeah.
both traces back to some kind of biological activity.
So this other minds idea is that we are breaking out from this anthropocentric view, and we're trying to think outside the box and study system that could be intelligent on Earth, like whales, for instance, that's mentioned in your paper.
I mean, something we've seen that throughout history, every time we took a geocentric view or an anthropocentric view, we've been proven wrong. And it's likely that we'll be proven wrong again. I once submitted an abstract to a meeting um, with a presentation title, Where Beyond Earth Will We Find Life? And the abstract just read, We don't have a clue, which was actually, rather than sounding negative, was pragmatic because it said, we really don't have a starting point. The way we would progress is to just do massive exploration because we really can't favor one scenario over the other because that would just assume everything is just like on Earth. And that seems a priori unlikely. So it is also worth thinking just about the fundamental principles um, about what constitutes life at the end. So maybe chemistry is not the starting point. We can do, in physics, you can do thermodynamics without
Hmm.
specifically dealing with bound states of electrons, right, which is a physicist's description of chemistry. So one can have other systems, and people are thinking along those lines as well. And as I said, something that I find really fundamental for any form of biology is the principle of inheritance. That is, you have a code for communication, so kind of language. And this is actually where we make a very nice connection between the microbiology and the search for extraterrestrial intelligence in the sense that we find a message that is based on a language. So you actually see how many different fields of research are actually coming together. And we need to spend far more time to give people the opportunity who work on all these different fields actually to come together and to talk to each other. Because if you talk to them individually, you realize they're talking about similar things, but very frequently they don't talk to each other. And
Hmm.
we're talking to, over the last few years, talking to people who've worked on very different areas, getting them together, that has been one of the most insightful experiences that I made in my whole life.
Okay. Let me say hi to our friends joining us from Minnesota, from Stockholm, Sweden, from Germany, from Chile, from San Francisco, from England, from Netherlands. We are talking about something that has been fascinating people is what shall we do after we detect a technosignature or the existence of life elsewhere. So let's move forward. Our first discussion here is like what, 2 pages of the paper. So there's a lot of content in this white paper. So I recommend you have a look at it, people, and you will see what I meant by a dense paper. Let's talk about the announcement. So we find life. We don't care. We're not going to discuss yet how, where, and what type of life. But this paper emphasized that we need to have a clear communication. So can you tell us, in your view as a researcher, what is the most important thing that we need to do when we do this announcement to the public to avoid misinformation, fear, etc.?
So as you mentioned, communication is absolutely essential. And, if you look over the last 30 years now of the detection of extrasolar planets, you find lots of examples where you see exaggeration of statements. Moreover, I think we have to move away from the idea that the detection of life is an event. We see something and we're sure that we find life. We're very likely to enter a situation where we find something. Then we have to describe very carefully how science is advanced by that discovery. So what does the evidence that we've just acquired, how does it move our scientific understanding forward? That is, where exactly is the new knowledge and where actually still existing gaps? What is it that we don't know yet and how we move forward? So that also means for science communication becomes very efficient if it becomes engaging, if you take the people with you, if you avoid the impression that scientists are the guys who know everything. Scientists are actually the guys who know or who should know what we don't know yet, and how we move forward as we foster further understanding. So avoid being patronizing to people. Take them with you. Take their concerns seriously. So this is where we get a nice connection between the natural sciences and the social sciences. Because in our communication, we have to think about what will be the perceptions of our communications. What is it that people actually want to know? So that means the research, as we progress through the discovery, as we unveil what we know, we have to enter kind of dialogue. We have to respect what it is that the public wants to know, and we have to take this seriously. So I really like to compare this to the case of the recent COVID pandemic, where also communication was absolutely essential. And we saw lots of mistakes that have been made about the communication, and people had specific answers, specific questions. Those need to be answered and addressed properly. So which means part of research will actually be driven by public demand.
Okay. So can you tell us how the recommendation that's made in this paper came out? We talk about the SETI post-detection hub. What exactly this is and what has been done to kind of provide a framework for communication in this case?
So we set up a hub for SETI post-detection in St. Andrews, in particular to engage people with quite a various range of expertise, to come together and address some of the essential things about SETI post-detection. That is, bring together people who work on the detection, who work on the communication, and people who understand the social sciences. because we need all of this together. So one fundamental thing that we did over last years, we did actually an exercise with everyone involved to think about the future scenarios of the environment in which we are operating, which provides the backdrop under which we actually experience certain detection events. That is, we need to understand, how people would react, what really matters, what will be the role of AI now, in 5 years' time, in 10 years' time, how will it affect societies? We see that we see a lot of divergences now between countries. We were somehow doing worse than during Cold War times. And we need to work together on this. This will be something that is not suitable for national appropriation.
Mm-hmm.
This is an international venture. So we created a toolkit which we can actually simulate certain detection scenarios. And those can be used in two different ways. First, we can run this with communities, and we can see what public reactions would be. So we can see any potential challenges, any potential pitfalls. So we have to consider cultural diversity within that. There are cultural differences, whether you do it with people in New York City or whether you do it with Maori communities in New Zealand. And there are even cultural differences between New York City and San Francisco. So that won't be exactly the same. And that needs to be recognized for any strategies.
Mm-hmm.
So then we can test regulatory and communication strategies just with the same post-detection toolkit that we have developed. So, and what we now need to do is actually put this into practice, test this with various communities around the world, and in parallel develop some strategies or build these strategies with the input that we learn from the community, and then stress test these communities on the scenarios. Work with the scientific communities to see what are likely detection scenarios. So put this all together, and you see it's an integrative process with lots of input, lots of actors, and we just need to engage.
Okay, so we make an announcement. Now let's talk about the reaction, the human reaction. This is also addressed in the paper bit. What will be basically, you believe, or what your work has been shown, the reaction at large in our society, in the way we perceive the cosmos, or our place in the cosmos, etc. What is some of the reaction you expect?
So I think the reaction will not be a homogeneous one. Different people will react differently to this. There are some risks that it could be something that splits societies. As we move forward, there's the risk that will cause friction within international platforms like the United Nations. On the other hand, there's an interesting precedent about the connections between learning about outer space and how it affects human perceptions on Earth. And that was with the first pictures of the Earth from outer space. So if you look at the Earth from outside, you actually see we're together on this small planet, and it's very vulnerable. So a lot of all the ecology movements that we've seen over the last few decades on planet Earth, there has been influence on these pictures from outer space. So will it change perceptions about our Earth-centric view? Again, it will challenge our Earth-centric view. it will challenge our human-centric view. Also, this happened in science repeatedly. We now have a much better understanding of the biology of the DNA. We see DNA as actually universal to all species, so from humans to microbes, and we're actually not that different. So when I went to school, so we learned within the African apes, humans are one side of the tree, and chimpanzees, gorillas, and orangutans are the other side. Actually, we learned from DNA analysis that chimpanzees are actually closer to humans than to the gorillas and to the orangutans. Then the gorillas are actually closer to both the chimpanzees and the humans than the orangutans. So we're actually not that special. So probably people might start thinking about this and might draw some conclusion from it. Some might draw reasonable conclusion from it. Some might be influenced in some other directions. One danger that we have is about the way the media now work. The social media, people tend to now sit in echo chambers. And it's really hard to reach through with sensible arguments. And any uncertainty that arises in human society is frequently abused by people for political gain. I think this is a large risk that comes every time something comes new and kind of challenges established structures.
Yeah, so the problem of social media, which is something I wrote about this morning, in fact, social media has been a great invention for humanity to work together. And we have this inspirational idea that by sharing information with each other, we will grow as a species. But then at the end, some corporations has been using social media to silo us into different categories, and governments have been doing that as well. And that's the danger because, as you mentioned, we talk into an echo chamber. So we basically don't really interact with each other. We interact only with the people that look like us.
So some fundamental mistake that I always see in all these AI suggestions of content you might be interested in. It is always based on, if you like something, you would be interested in more of the same. My brain works completely different.
Mm-hmm.
If I've just seen something that I've been interested in recently, I want something else. I'd be interested in something else. And YouTube always gives me the same type of video, something that I've already watched. So if I wanted to have some recent pop music, maybe the next time I want some classic music. I want something different. And it doesn't offer me that. So just changing this kind of algorithm, give people the opportunity to actually get some other perspective in. That's extremely useful. I have to say, a colleague of mine in St. Andrews, Ben Sachs, he is running a competition for schools throughout the UK, which is called the Ethics Cup. And it's about a culture of debate. And you only score not by winning the argument. You score by listening to others, to understand any opposing argument. You take it seriously and then to reconsider. So you score by your willingness to reconsider that might be actually a different answer that you have arrived at initially, because there's an additional argument coming in.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a good debate culture. And it's really something that is worth fostering. And with these echo chambers, we're just driving people apart from each other.
So the impact of this for the topic here is that if we find life, some of these echo chamber may react in an extreme way and lose basically don't connect with the reality. We could be telling them this is a microbiological life, and they will not basically believe us and expect to see more like a ray of death, aliens attacking us or something like this. And so how we gonna how we can build this back, how we can put back the cohesion of society in this topic.
That is one of the most challenging problems, actually, because there are many actors, uh, and the vast majority of them we can't control. We're not in control. Everything that we can change is through our own communications. We can't control what other people are doing, what other people are saying. Moreover, there's a sphere around us of actors that we can influence. There's a sphere beyond of actors we can influence. So we really have to find a delicate strategy through that. So again, something that helps, given that we have our toolkit, we can play around with this. So something we've done recently is we fed our toolkit into an artificial intelligence system. So build a system where it can actually interact. So it can take a certain role of an organization, of an institution. You're confronted with a scenario, and then you can decide what to do in case of a detection. And I had great fun playing through this as Secretary General of the United Nations. And I realized it's an absolutely tough job. And after the whole simulation went for about 3 weeks, I was still happy that World War III hadn't broken out. So I counted that as a success. But you see, you can't please anyone. So the first thing that happened was I completely displeased the Americans, the Russians, and the Chinese by completely rejecting that they take the lead, they keep things secret. I say, no, we make transparency. No, we stick by the principles of the Outer Space Treaty, which talks about the benefit to all countries, the province of all mankind.
Mm-hmm.
So similarly, Article 27.1 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights is about the participation in science and the sharing of the benefits. So the United Nations tried, to also recognize the rights of 190 other countries. So it took a while. So the European Union got in at some point. The Americans got back. So finally, the Chinese got back, because really set the precedent and said we will not accept any national appropriation. So the only people who didn't join back at the end were the Russians and the Iranians. Again, you have to think about who to displease, and do you displease the right people at the end, because you can't please everyone, as I said. And at the end, it really became something of where support was provided for the global South, and global equity came into play, and which was just because we were sticking to international law, international treaties, international agreements. I think they clearly have a role to play in this, rather than one nation taking the lead on this. And it's really sad to see how at the moment the United States of America has a kind of China allergy. I mean, you can think about China whatever you want, but China is a fact and won't go away. So we have to find a constructive way, to deal with each other. And if we don't learn how to work constructively, with other humans on Earth, how will we ever constructively do anything with aliens?
Exactly. That's a perfect transition to the question we got from Marita Frolich. Are we advanced enough to even understand the message if we were contacted by intelligent alien species? So,
I mean, we will face the test once it happens, because we also don't know how advanced any civilization will be that is trying to contact us. And it's a very difficult task, um, because in our communications, a large fraction of the communication is actually not only in what we say, what we actually transmit, but in the already existing common knowledge and common background. So you notice if you say something, if you talk to one of your friends who knows you very well, there's a lot of things that you don't say explicitly because you both know it.
Yeah.
So the problem, if you have a completely alien civilization as opposed to humans, humans share common heritage. They share common culture. At least some of that culture is strongly overlapping. And that is actually part of the understanding every time a message is sent. We don't share
Yeah,
that.
when you communicate with me with
So,
words, you
so
don't only
it
exchange words. There is also the
so one of
background of what you say.
so
Yeah.
one of the things that needs to happen is actually first to build the common background before you can actually understand things. And we see this if you go from one country to another. Um, Italians do things differently than Germans, and sometimes that can lead to some misunderstandings. Sometimes rather funny situations where you see, the crazy German guy thought that Italians are like Germans, and actually they're not.
So if an alien civilization is more advanced than us, they already have thought about that. So if they communicate with us, the first message they will send us is not, I will say, an important message. It will be basically a lot of background information about themselves. And then the real message will come.
Yes, but you're assuming on that is that it would be deliberate contact, a deliberate message to contact people on Earth.
Yes.
So if we think about everything that comes out as electromagnetic radiation from planet Earth that contains messages, I mean, the smallest number of them are deliberate attempts to communicate with aliens. So if alien civilizations, if anything that we get, might not be the deliberate attempt to communicate with us.
Okay. So you wrote this white paper. We're gonna have to wrap up because we promise we're not gonna be more than 30 minutes, and we already slightly over it. But you wrote this white paper. Do you have some recommendation? You put together this hub, the SETI Post Detection Hub. You put together some tools. What is the next step you believe that should be done by you, by an organization? Who should take the lead? I mean, let's say I give you $10 million right now. What are you gonna do?
So first, it would be great if we had 10 million to spend, which currently we don't. So something that we're doing in the very near future is, more widely engage with various communities, with the wider society, with experts in the field. Something we actually need is we need some better connections with people working on SETI from China, people from India. We need people from Africa on board. We really need to widen up around the globe. So we also have to think about how do we get any policy across. Something that was a big problem for COVID was the nationalization of government science advice. So essentially every country ran its own panel and its own advisors what to do with COVID. What COVID needed was a clear global strategy. And of course, the discrepancy between national strategies was completely exploited through the virus to always find gaps and further spread. So that was completely inefficient. So fortunately, there is a new attempt for government science advice directly to the United Nations. They've identified that outer space is something that they're interested in principle, and we need to get our foot into the door.
Okay. So when you mentioned this idea of diversifying and brainstorming with other nations, it remind me the project A Sign in Space from Daniela De Paulis.
Yes.
Can you tell us, our viewer, what this project was about?
Yes, I know something about the project. Well, what it actually did is it confronted people with a scenario. And this is something very important because this is really how we learn from practice when we do it rather than, abstractly thinking, oh, this might happen, this might happen, this might happen. Um, and yeah, we need more of these kind of things. It's really, we have to, test scenarios, with real people because this is
Yes.
where
So
we really gain the important insights from.
yeah, we did this. I was involved in this project with Daniela. So we simulated basically the transmission of a message that was received by multiple antennas on Earth, and a group of people, thousands of them, worked together in trying to decode and decipher the message and the content of the message. So this we went all the way. They went all the way because I was not involved in that. All the way to understanding to deciphering the message, but we still at the step when nobody really understand what this message was sent to us, and uh, and it's interesting that it's basically the humanity part is the most difficult part, like the mathematical one at the beginning to convert a radio signal into a signal that we can understand, and then decrypting the message. This is like physical kind of process, and chemical was understood. But now the last piece, the why those pseudo aliens send us this message, it's taking years and nobody really have an answer yet.
And you realize this was still a message that was created by humans.
So it means that when we're gonna get a message created by aliens, it's gonna take probably decades of work and brains of multiple people to really understand what they're trying to tell us, if they're trying to communicate with us. All right,
Definitely.
thank you.
You're most welcome.
So that was a SETI Live. We talk about something deep and profound, I will say, the SETI post-detection future, with Martin, professor at St Andrews in Scotland. I have a few announcements to make before we part. The last week winner for the SETI board game is William Balk. Um, watch your email because you may receive some instruction on how to get this SETI board game. William, if you're watching us. Next week, we're going to talk about something completely different, and I will be the one again. You're going to have me again. I'm sorry, guys. We are going to talk about 2024 YR4 with Andy Rifkin, talking about this asteroid that could potentially hit the moon. And we're going to basically see that live, maybe, if we have a spacecraft and telescope capable of pointing toward this direction. That will be the topic of our conversation. Martin, it was a pleasure having you. I
It
hope
was,
we
it
are
was,
going
a,
to have
it was a pleasure talking to you about this and, the wider audience.
and yeah, we are, this is going to be on YouTube. You know, people, if you want to support us, support Martin research, and make sure you can come to see us at the SETI Institute or go around the world to talk about his research and improving basically the way we will react when we find technosignature. You can go to our website, make a small donation, the button called donate or something like that. You can also support this program by simply liking it, sharing it, commenting on it. We read your comments. We are on all the platforms, and yeah, and we take the time to read them. In fact, it's very interesting to have interaction with you, especially on a topic like that. So please send us your comments, and we will put together a compilation and send them to Martin, because I'm sure it will be very interesting to hear what you think about the SETI post detection protocol. Okay, thank you again, and we see each other next week. And Martin, I hope to see you soon somewhere on this planet. Bye bye.
See you. Bye.